Alright, real talk. What if I told you there's just one sales script that can help you sell literally anything? Sounds crazy, right? But stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll have a bulletproof framework that'll have people saying yes before they even realize it. Let's break this down step by step. There are 10 steps in total. The first 9 will take you through the entire sales process from the moment you shake hands, all the way to pitching and closing the deal. And number 10 is a bonus advanced strategy for those of you who've been in sales for a while to make sure your prospects don't flake at the last minute. If you need our exact and detailed sales script that we use to close deals, comment down below and I will send it to you. First of all, one thing that you need to understand is that selling is not about shoving a product down someone's throat. It's about guiding them. The best salespeople don't feel like salespeople at all. They feel like trusted advisors. Let's be real, how many sales calls do you think people get in a day? A lot, right? And 99% of them sound the exact same. So when you come in with the usual, hey, do you have a minute? You've already lost. We need to shake things up. That is exactly why building rapport is very important, but we're not just talking about random small talk. The key is to ask specific questions in a particular way to build trust and learn about your prospect. Why? Because people buy from people they like and trust. If your prospect feels a connection with you, selling becomes 10 times easier. Here's how you do it. Let's say you're cold calling or meeting someone for the first time. Instead of saying, "Hey John, how's it going?" you can say, "Hey John, great to meet you. I saw on LinkedIn that you went to ICL. I actually went there too. How was your experience?" Now they're engaged because you found common ground. You can easily find the information if you type in their name on LinkedIn, and there you have all details about the prospect, like what they do, what their hobbies are, or which college they went to. This works with anything: schools, sports teams, cities, even mutual connections. People love talking about themselves. Another important thing is the tone of your voice, which determines whether the prospect will stay on the call with you or not. Your prospect might not be able to get what you are trying to say, or if you are speaking too slow, it can get them bored. You need to remember that how you speak matters more than what you say. If you agree that finding common ground is the key to building trust, drop a comment below. Now that we've built rapport, the next thing we gotta do? Set the agenda. There is a reason for doing that, because people hate uncertainty. If they don't know how long this meeting is, what's going to happen, or when you're going to pitch them, they'll get anxious and put their guard up. So, to disarm them, you need to set clear expectations. Here's exactly how to do it. You can say, "Hey John, before we get started, I want to make sure we're on the same page. I'd love to take about 15 to 20 minutes to understand your situation, ask some questions, and see if we'd be a good fit to work together. By the end of the call, if it makes sense to move forward, great. If not, no worries." Does that sound fair? Now, by doing this, you remove pressure from them and let them feel that they are in control of this conversation. And when people feel heard, they are more likely to engage in a conversation with you. Try this out in your next sales call and let me know in the comments how it goes. All right, listen. This is the most important part of any sales conversation. If there's no pain, there's no sale. People buy because they want to fix a problem or achieve a better outcome. If you don't uncover what's really bothering them, then you're just guessing. And guess what? Guessing doesn't close deals. Let me provide you an example. Let's say you're selling an AI-powered marketing tool and you ask your prospect, "Would you like to use AI in your marketing?" Which gets you a boring yes-no answer. Instead of asking them in a traditional boring way, you can try this. "Hey, I noticed you haven't implemented AI in your content strategy yet. Can you tell me what is holding you back?" Now that you have said it like this, your prospect will open up and explain their issue or the reason they are not using AI. And once they do, you can dig deeper. Ask follow-ups. The more painful the problem, the easier it is to sell them a solution. Now, we gotta get them hooked. And the best way to do that? Storytelling. Because here's the deal. Facts tell, but stories sell. If you just dump a bunch of data on them, they won't care. But if they hear a story they can relate to, they'll see themselves in it. It is very simple. You can say, "One of my clients was just like you. They were struggling with lead generation because their lead pipeline was not good enough and was not working for them. Then, they found us and we implemented the sales pipeline tailored for their business, and within 60 days, they saw a 15% increase in their sales. You can tell the story of any client you have worked with in the past and see how one simple story can work wonders. At this point, your prospect will start thinking, wait, if it worked for them, it might work for me too. At this point, you've identified the pain and need. Now, it's time to determine if they have the budget to invest in your solution. If your prospect does not have the budget, they're not a qualified lead. Your goal is to uncover how much they're willing to spend while making sure you don't undersell your value. When discussing budget with a prospect, it's important to approach the conversation with confidence and strategy. Many people feel uncomfortable asking about budget, but the key is to be direct while giving the prospect room to engage. One simple way to ask is, do you have a set budget for this? But some prospects may hesitate to share numbers, so using a range-based approach can be more effective. For instance, you might say, are you looking to invest between $5,000 to $10,000? This not only provides a reference point, but also helps you gauge their expectations. Another powerful technique is anchoring. If your goal is to close at $5,000, you can start by positioning the price higher, such as $8,000 to $12,000. This makes $5,000 feel like a better deal in comparison, psychologically making it easier for the prospect to accept. However, even with these approaches, prospects might still hesitate to discuss budget. If they respond with, we don't have a budget, instead of accepting that at face value, you can guide the conversation by providing industry insights. I understand. In your industry, companies typically invest anywhere between $X to $Y for a solution like this. Does that sound reasonable? This helps normalize the idea of investment and gives them a benchmark to work with. If they push back with, oh, that's too expensive, rather than defending your price, shift the focus to their expectations by asking, I completely understand. What were you expecting to invest in solving this problem? This question encourages them to share their perspective, which can then open the door to a value-based discussion. In some cases, they may say, we need to get approval, which is a common objection. Instead of leaving it at that, acknowledge their process and keep the conversation moving by asking, that makes total sense. Who else needs to be involved in this decision? This way, you can identify key stakeholders and potentially position yourself for a follow-up conversation with decision makers. One of the biggest reasons deals drag on forever is because there's no clear timeline. If a prospect doesn't have a set time frame, the whole thing can just keep getting pushed back indefinitely. That's why it's so important to lock in a timeline early on. A simple way to do this is just to ask, when do you think you'd be ready to move forward? Now, a lot of times, they'll say something like, maybe in 2 months. But instead of just accepting that, you should dig a little deeper. You can follow up with something like, what is stopping you from doing it sooner? More often than not, there's an internal reason. Maybe they need approval, maybe they're uncertain, or maybe they're just juggling too many things at once. Your job is to uncover what's really holding them back and help them see why waiting isn't in their best interest. The key here is to create urgency. You can do it by reminding them what's at stake by saying something like, if we start now, you'll start seeing results in 3 months. But if you wait another 2 months, that just pushes your ROI further out. Is there a specific reason for delaying? This way, they start to realize that delaying isn't just about waiting, it's actually costing them time, money, and results. If you can get them to see the cost of inaction, they're way more likely to move forward sooner rather than later. Alright, so up until now, you've been building trust, asking the right questions, and getting the prospect to open up about their challenges. This is crucial because if you pitch too early, before they feel heard or before they see you as the solution, they'll tune out. But now that you've done the groundwork, it's finally time to present your offer, but you want to do it the right way. First, always ask permission. Instead of jumping straight into your pitch, say something like, would you like me to share how I can help? This small step makes a huge difference because it turns your pitch into a conversation, not a monologue. When they say yes, it means they're open to hearing your solution and they'll be more engaged. Secondly, before you even introduce your product or service, reinforce their pain points. You might say, so from what I understand, your biggest challenge is scaling content because your editors are already maxed out, right? Now this does two things. It reassures them that you've been listening, and it keeps their pain fresh in their mind, which makes them more receptive to a solution. Now, when you finally introduce your offer, it should be framed as the direct solution to their exact problem. For example, we help companies increase their content output by 5% without increasing headcount. Now, one thing you should notice here is what I said is not a list of features. It's a clear, outcome-driven statement that speaks directly to their needs. Then, back it up with proof. Give them a quick success story or statistic like, clients in your industry who implemented this saw a 30% increase in engagement within 3 months. This helps eliminate doubt and shows them that what you're offering actually works. Finally, make it easy for them to say yes. The less friction in the process, the better. You can say something like, we handle everything for you, so there's no learning curve or heavy lifting on your end. This reassures them that working with you won't be a burden, which removes another potential objection. The key to a great pitch is keeping it short, clear, and 100% tied to their pain points. If you follow this structure, your pitch won't feel like a sales pitch. It'll feel like the obvious next step for them. Handling objections is one of the most critical skills in sales. No matter how good your pitch is, prospects will always have concerns, and the way you respond to those concerns can make or break the deal. The better you are at handling objections, the higher your close rate. One of the most common objections is price. If someone says it's too expensive, don't just try to justify the cost. Shift the conversation to value. You can say, I totally understand that price is a concern. But let's look at the return. If this helps you generate 3 times the revenue, does the investment make sense? This way, you're getting them to think beyond cost and focus on what they're actually gaining. Then there's the classic objection, I need more time to think about it. Instead of just saying, sure, take your time, dig a little deeper. In this case, you can say, totally get it. What specifically are you thinking about? Maybe I can clarify some points. Sometimes, this hesitation comes from uncertainty or an unanswered question, and if you address it directly, you can move the conversation forward much faster. Another big one is, I need to check with my team. This isn't necessarily a no, it's just a stall. A great way to handle this is to say, that makes sense. Would it help if I joined a call with them to answer any concerns directly? This puts you in a position to address objections in real time rather than waiting for the prospect to relay everything themselves. At the end of the day, objections aren't rejections. They're just part of the decision-making process. If you address them with confidence and empathy, you'll reduce hesitation and close more deals. Now it's time for the close, and this is where you seal the deal. The first thing to understand is that people don't like to be sold, but they love to buy. Think about it. When you buy an iPhone, a new laptop, or whatever you're into, no one has to convince you. You're excited to buy it because you see the value. That's the feeling you want to create for your prospects. Your goal isn't to push them into buying. It's to make them excited to move forward with your product or service. And yes, one-liners can actually work really well here if you use them strategically. The close itself depends on the type of sale, whether it's a short-term transactional deal or a long-term strategic one. Let me give you an example. I recently bought a camera from a store. When I went in, they didn't have it in stock, so I got the sales rep's contact and told them to let me know when it was available. A few days later, they texted me saying, hey, the camera will be in stock next week, but if you put down a $200 deposit today, we'll throw in some free gifts, an SD card, a camera bag, and some accessories. Now, I was already planning to buy the camera, but this offer made me act immediately instead of waiting. This is a great example of using a deposit strategy to accelerate the buying decision. Now, what if the prospect still doesn't commit after you make your offer? They might throw out another objection. When that happens, handle it and then say, now that we've covered that, is there anything else you need to see before moving forward? They will say yes or no, or they might have another hesitation. Your job is to address it and then ask again, is there anything else you need to see before moving forward? The idea is to keep removing barriers until there are no more objections left. When you finally ask, is there anything else? And they say, no, I have everything I need to make a decision. You immediately follow up with, great. When would you like to make that decision? And if they say, oh, I need to think about it, you respond with, what exactly do you need to think about? Your job is to get absolute clarity on what's stopping them. Even after handling objections and getting verbal commitment, some prospects will still ghost you at the last minute. So how do you reduce the chances of that happening? Use the pullback close, a bit of reverse psychology that locks them in. Right before sending over the contract, say something like, hey, I'm going to send you the contract now, but before I do, I just want to ask, do you see any reason why you wouldn't move forward? Because I've seen it happen before where someone is super excited, says they're all in, and then suddenly disappears. I just want to make sure that's not the case here. Now this does two things. First of all, it makes them verbally reaffirm their commitment. If they say, no, I'm definitely in, I'll sign it tonight, they're now holding themselves accountable. Secondly, it forces them to address any last-minute doubts. If they were thinking of backing out, this gives them a chance to bring it up now, so you can handle it proactively. People like to stay consistent with their own words. If they say they'll do something, they're way less likely to back out. At the end of the day, closing isn't about pressure. It's about creating the right buying experience. When you do it right, prospects feel excited to buy from you instead of feeling like they're being pushed into a sale. By handling objections, creating urgency, and reinforcing commitment, you make it easy for them to say yes. If you found this breakdown valuable and want a copy of the master sales script I just shared with you, leave a comment below with the number one thing you learned from this video and make sure to like this video. Once we hit 100 likes, I'll release the full downloadable script so you can use it to crush your sales goals and close more deals effortlessly.